Well, hello, friends. I hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to a brand new week of Take 5 Devotions. I sure hope that you were with us in worship service yesterday. If you're not, you missed a great worship service there. Every time we gather together, it just seems like God just keeps showing up and proving Himself over and over again. And I'm so glad that He does, and glad to be a part of a people that gather for worship when so many don't this hour. I'm glad to be a part of that. Well, now, what we're doing this week, we're trying to tie up our Living by Faith series. We've been talking about this since November the 12th in church. Now, all of our Take Fives haven't been on this, but we've been talking about this since November 12th. Primarily, we've been dealing with Hebrews chapter 11 and trying to form perspectives and form conclusions from the Scriptures about what it is to live this great life of faith. And so this week we're going to try to wrap it up. We're going to cover the last 9 verses of Hebrews 11 and the first 3 verses of Hebrews 12. Now, it's going to be a little different. There's not really a place of start and stop all along the way. It's not like that I can have a different point every day. So what we're going to do, we're going to just stop and pick up each day all the way through Friday until we conclude this. So this is the only time this week I'm going to tell you this right here for sake of time. So we're just going to pick up each day where we leave off and what we read last, talking about that as we try to bring this thing to a conclusion. Because I believe that the conclusion of this thing is going to be the climax that you and I need to really help us set the tone and set the bar for what God intends for us as we strive to live this life of faith. Now, the reason Hebrews 11 is so powerful is because it is a collection of examples and actions of faith that will give clarity and understanding to the reader if we'll just apply it. It's not somebody else's book. This is God's Word that we need to apply. It's from here that we draw our conclusions. We form our perspectives about what it is to live by faith. We don't get this from an outside source. We don't get it from this author or that writer or this speaker. We get it straight from God, and that's really the most important. So as we've been studying the lives of faith of these men and women in Hebrews 11, and about each one of these, the writer of Hebrews tells us something that requires us to go back and study their life. And when we go back and study their life, then we see how faith operated for them on a moment-by-moment basis. It is necessary for us to see the similarities between ourselves and between them. If we don't, we will never know that the faith that we read about in Hebrews 11 is faith that can operate in our lives today. So that's why this is so important. We're given all of these examples so that we can find ourselves and see how this applies to us in the Scriptures. Now, we've spent time talking about 20 different men and women of faith, and we have looked at their lives. We've examined their ups and their downs, their shortcomings, their battles, their victories, and everything that their walk of faith carried them through, we have looked at. And there's so much more we could look at from their lives. It's just about impossible to sit down in 1 week and talk about a man like David or a man like Samson or a man like Samuel or a man like Jephthah. It's just about impossible to do that. So this is something that needs to be ongoing in our lives as individuals. I want to read Hebrews 11:32. I know I've read it for the past 4 or 5 weeks, but I want to read that just to set the tone on where we're going this week. The writer says, "What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets." The most important part in that verse is the first line that says, "What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of these men." It's as if the writer there is saying it's vain to attempt to exhaust this subject. You really can't. You cannot exhaust this subject of faith. These that he's talked about, he's mentioned 20 different names in Hebrews 11. but there's so many more that you could look at. So it's impossible to exhaust it, but what He has done, He has given us sufficient. He has given us enough. After all of this research that we've done since November the 12th, I believe we can undeniably conclude that there is still much more out there if we would just learn it. In comparison, John actually concluded his gospel. The last verse that John wrote says this, that there were so many other things that Jesus said and did that if they were all written down, there wouldn't be enough books in the world to contain it. Now that's a lot. We think that what we have about Jesus is a lot, but really it's just a drop in the bucket. What we have about faith is just a drop in the bucket. John said, if you wrote down every single thing that Jesus did, every single thing that He said, there wouldn't be enough books to contain it. So what we must understand is that John is saying the same thing the writer of Hebrews is saying. There are many other things, but there's really no reason to write them down. What we have is enough if we will just apply it. We have sufficient revelation if we will just get in it and open the pages and read it and let our spirit see what's happening on the inside as we unveil the pages of God's Word. We have enough. I want to tell you something, friend. There really is no reason we don't need any more books. I've said this in the past, and I will continue to say it. There's been enough preaching done at Appleton Assembly of God since its inception in 1975 to save the world. There shouldn't be one single person in Appleton, Alabama, that doesn't know about Jesus or that doesn't have some basic understanding of Scriptures and at least have a decent knowledge of Bible characters. There shouldn't be one person. You think of how much preaching, how much Word has been given since 1975 when this church was chartered. Man, it's more than can be imagined. I know myself, I've been pastoring here for 16 years. We're about to start the beginning of our 17th year in April. And in 16 years, preaching most of the time, 2 to 3 times a week, man, that's a lot of word, not to mention guest speakers and missionaries and revivals and all of these things that were happening. And even during the time when we were having Sunday school, all this word is going out there. We have more than enough if we would just use it. We don't need any more Bible stories. We don't need any more Bible characters. We don't have to know anything else about Jesus. What we know is enough if we will just apply it. Friend, you want your walk of faith to go over the top. You want it to sit on top of the mountain and rest there in strength and power. Then take what God has given us, apply it and live it. And I guarantee you what we have is absolutely enough for us to walk and for us to be the new heroes of faith in the future. Well, hey, I've got to get out of here. It's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Take 5 as we pick up with Hebrews 11, verse 33. Until then, God bless you. Have a great day. Remember, friend, trust the Lord. He will never fail you.